Hey guys, Chris here from Carolot Farm. This morning has been a bit of a whirlwind. I'm going to show you all the footage that I was able to get, but long story short, short story long, when I went out to feed the horses this morning their breakfast, I immediately noticed that Sweetheart was foaming at the nose and the mouth, and her breathing was incredibly raspy. You could hear this gurgle sound like in her throat and in her mouth. So I was immediately alarmed and I came right to the house and I called the vet. I just came down this morning to feed Sweetheart, and she has like a frothy foam coming out of her nose and her mouth. And you can hear all of the extra foamy phlegm in her throat and airway. So I put a call into the vet. I am not going to give her breakfast. I don't want to cause any more irritation or potential choke. But this certainly is concerning. I am not sure what she's got going on, but I suspect it's, oh gosh, it's related to her breathing condition and the stress that she's been under with this severe heat. Although today is cooler, as was last night, but this is certainly something I've never seen from her before. So when I came out to feed Sweetheart and Rocky this morning, I noticed that Sweetheart was foaming at the mouth, and that was very unusual. Not only the mouth, but this foam is also coming out of her nostrils. And I could hear very labored breathing. You can hear a lot of this like raspy, foamy stuff, obviously probably in her throat. And my concern is it's coming from her lungs. So I immediately came to the house, I called the vet, and the vet is on their way. They recommended that I go ahead and give her 2 milliliters of Banamine. They're suspecting choke, so we'll have to wait and see. When I first saw her condition, I assumed it was her breathing condition that was flaring up, because we have seen some similar signs, but just never this foam before. So I did not give her breakfast. She is hanging out in the feedlot here. Rocky is close by to keep her company, and I'll let you know more just as soon as we do. I've just given her the Banamine. As soon as I opened her mouth a little to put the syringe in, she obviously opened it and a big, pile of this foamy drool came out. So I'm hoping enough of that Banamine kind of got onto her tongue to start giving her some relief. The vet is thinking that if it's choke, this will help her just to relax a little. So again, the vet should be here shortly. I'm going to go open the ring gate so they can drive up closer to our barnyard. And hopefully we can get this sweet little girl feeling better soon. It's been quite a week for her. With Sweetheart's breathing condition, she has had a really hard time this past week with the intense heat and humidity. We have been in the midst of this first summer heat wave. And so, she definitely was having some labored breathing. She got overheated, I think it was Tuesday evening. And so we immediately soaked her down, kind of head to tail. We put her in front of a fan, got her in the shade, and that helped. She calmed down, she recovered just fine. And then the next day, my husband and I got up really early. We built a little shade shelter for her over one of the feedlots so that we could close her in there and just put multiple fans on her in the shade early that afternoon. So we did that. That worked really well. And she didn't seem to have any more like severe issues. However, yesterday, which was kind of the last of the pretty hot days, I did notice that she had a little bit of like yellow nasal discharge. And sometimes she gets that. And I think it's all related to her breathing condition. And so when things get flared up or things get irritated, we do start to see some of that nasal discharge. I'll let the vet know that. And then today, I think it's just gone a step farther from kind of being irritated to now she's got this full on-blown inflammation. So again, it could just be choke. That's what the vet is thinking perhaps it is. She's only been out grazing overnight, so I guess it could happen. but the horses have not been eating much hay because they're preferring the grass, and she's not had any grain. So if it is choke from the grass, that's new to me, but I'm sure it can happen. So as soon as I learn what's going on, I will share it with you, because this is meant to be a learning opportunity for anyone who tunes in. So again, I've got my little sweetheart back in the feedlot. She's not feeling well. She's foaming at the nose and mouth. When she opens her mouth, a lot of just foamy drool comes out. And it's not the clover kind of foamy drool. Like, this is different. And you can hear this real raspy breathing. So I'm going to open the red gates here now, because the vet should be here any minute. In my experience with horses choking, and it's not been a lot of experience, thank goodness, right? I feel like the horses I have seen who've been choking, though, have been in greater distress. They're kind of stretching and coughing more. I don't see that so much in her. She actually is relatively bright and alert. I mean, I think she wanted her breakfast, but again, I wasn't going to give it to her just in case that caused her to choke with this extra foam and stuff in her throat. So I don't know. This is really unusual. I've never seen anything like this. You know, she's had her spring shot, she had her rabies, so I'm not concerned about that. So it's a mystery. You know, this little mini of ours, ever since day one, when we brought her home, she's had kind of issue after issue, and they're all related to this underlying chronic breathing condition that she has. So I don't know. I really, you know, we're doing everything we can. You know, maybe she needs a nebulizer. You know, I wasn't sure earlier in the week if I should have given her Dex when she was having a slightly elevated breathing. But I'm concerned or hesitant to give Dex because of the potential of causing a horse to then founder and have laminitis. And so, knowing these minis are a little more sensitive, I held off, and I felt like she recovered well with what we were doing. And so I might again, once again, ask the vet today, you know, about the Dex, and kind of bring my concerns forward again and see if she has concerns. And I mean, I'm sure she doesn't, or else she wouldn't, you know, if she had concerns, she wouldn't have recommended the Dex. But I'm hesitant to give Dex for health reasons. And if this is a breathing flare-up that she's having, I need to have something that I can give her. And if I'm not comfortable with the Dex, I need to figure out what is another alternative. So I know some horses have nebulizers, similar to how someone with asthma could use a nebulizer during a flare-up. There are other medications out there that we could also potentially give her. But I'm just not sure if this is an allergy breathing flare-up, or if this is something completely different like the vet is suspecting. So there's a lot to figure out here and unpack. I did turn the fans on so that she would at least have some cool air moving around her, just by the off chance that helps her to kind of feel a little more at ease. So you can see here, I mean, she's not in distress. She definitely is not feeling well, though. Her head is hung low, and she is telling us with her body language that she's not feeling well. So yeah, this is our little sweetheart here. Sweetheart is, you know, just resting as comfortably as possible here in the feedlot behind me. I do have a couple of our fans going on her, and she's just kind of taking it easy while we wait for the vet. So yeah, I'm just so worried about her. You know, it's this ongoing issue with her, and again, these breathing conditions are chronic, therefore it's going to probably be something that we will continue to experience and grapple with for quite some time. But it's still new to me, and I have so much to learn. And my number one concern is helping to keep my horses healthy, happy, and safe. And so that is absolutely why I've called in the vet. So we'll see. I do hope she starts to feel better here soon, though. The vet just did a very thorough check of Sweetheart. She does not have any infection in her lungs, nor does she have any fluid. She was not choking, so this is a breathing event that we're experiencing stemming from her chronic, condition. And so after giving her the Banamine earlier, she is beginning to feel a little more comfortable. She did eat her breakfast. The vet said it was fine to feed her that. She was very happy to eat. And she's doing well now. And the vet has recommended that we go ahead and start her on a 2-week treatment of Dex. I did ask about, the concern of laminitis, and the vet felt strongly that because Sweetheart has not shown any signs of any sort of founder or laminitis, she thinks it's totally fine to go ahead and start her on the Dex, and that it could really, really be beneficial. So I have gone and I have drawn up our first round of Dex. She is getting 1.5 milliliters once a day for the first few days. And then the vet is going to send me kind of the schedule, because it's one of those things that you'll kind of then be weaning them off of. So I'm going to give her this now. I'll turn her out. Luckily today is overcast. It's a little cooler and there's a slight breeze blowing. So I will once again keep a close eye on her, but I'm just really thankful that it wasn't choke, that she doesn't have an infection, and that her lungs especially were not filling with fluid. So it was a bit of a surprise this morning to find her in such a state, but I'm really glad that it looks like we can really help her through this. I will also share with you that the vet did suspect that all of that extra foam and fluidy drool was stemming from Clover, and I have known Clover to certainly cause horses to drool. But she was thinking because of Sweetheart's breathing condition that just kind of got things really flared, and that's what caused that foaminess. But you can see here, after having the Banamine in her system for about 30 minutes now, 40 minutes tops, she is feeling much more comfortable, and I will give her this little bit of Dex and then turn her out. Now that Sweetheart has been fully checked out by the vet, and she has a little Banamine as well as Dex in her system to help with all of that inflammation that is built up, we have turned her out, and we will continue to come and monitor her throughout the day. If it looks like she begins to get hot or if her breathing increases, we will certainly bring her back into our little feedlot where we have built her the added shade shelter with access to our fans. You can hear she is still coughing, so there is still this residual inflammation and tickle that will probably continue for some time. The vet did also say, though, that if we see continued discharge coming out of her nose or her mouth, to keep her informed, just in case it looks like there is any other lingering infection or anything else that begins to set in. But right now, all of her counts were normal, and we are just going to monitor her. Now that I have come inside after caring for Sweetheart and, meeting with the vet this morning, I have had a chance to cool down, and I want to unpack with you a few more things that came out of this morning's visit. This has been quite the week here on the farm. Not only have we just come through our first major heat wave, we had 4 days of super intense high heat and humidity, which was quite hard on the horses, Sweetheart especially. We had Sweetheart herself, who then was overheating on Tuesday evening, I believe it was. So we had to kind of rush to her and take good care of her, get her cooled down, and she seemed to rebound well from that. And the next day, which I think was Wednesday, my husband and I got up early and we built this big shade shelter for her because we knew that we needed to get her shade and fans to help her better make it through the afternoon heat. And then yesterday was Thursday, and Thursday was the last of the really hot days. It wasn't quite as hot as the previous days. And with the help of the new shade shelter and the fans, Sweetheart seemed to manage relatively well. Now, I say relatively well because her breathing is still a little more pronounced than usual, which is always more pronounced than the average horse at rest. And so she certainly has had a more labored week. I have videos, videos on all of these though, because it has been quite a week. And then here we are today. You know, today is Friday, and before 8 o'clock in the morning, I went down to feed and check on the horses, and that's when I found Sweetheart once again in distress, but this time a very different distress. So if you'd like to see kind of start to finish how this week unfolded for us and how everything turned out and all of the tending and caring that we have been giving to our horses in this high heat, check out our other videos, because I have made one for I think just about every day, and some days there may even have been two, just because of the day's events. It has been quite the week, and I'm ready for everyone to kind of rest and recover. I'm ready for the temperatures to get a little lower, and then for hopefully all of us just to kind of relax and breathe a little easier. When I was talking to the vet about future heat waves and what could we do to better support Sweetheart, something she mentioned was the possibility of having to either start giving her decks ahead of the next heat wave if we see it coming. You know, if we can see a few days in advance and it's going to be super, super hot, we could start this 2-week treatment. I didn't realize that Dex was meant to be this longer term treatment. I really thought it was a short-term medicine to give for like a specific attack. But it seems as though, like a lot of other steroid type medicines, it is meant to be weaned off of. And so that is why it's this 2-week regimen. But that was something else the vet mentioned, that, you know, we could start her on Dex ahead of time if we see another heat wave coming. And she also said that if it looks like we are continuing to almost have to keep her on Dex because of her continuous breathing issues with this heat, there are some other medications that we might consider putting her on that are more like a daily steroid. Again, I'm not sure what the names were, and maybe it isn't a steroid, but the vet did say that there are some other daily medications, some tablets that we could put her on that might be a more permanent relief if this doesn't let up, or if it looks like we're having to continue her on Dex for any long length of time. So those are some other updates that the vet shared. I want to pass that on to you. Again, I have a lot more research to do, a lot of learning to do, and just this little horse that we need to figure out how to help. Thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, if you're interested in checking out those other videos from earlier in the week, you can find them. I do hope that you find them helpful as well, though, because it really does show you what it was like for us here on the farm as we navigated this first really hot heat wave. You know, if you have a horse that has a breathing condition like Sweetheart, perhaps you are also having issues with this. And I wish you well. I wish your horse, you know, comfort, because it's a really, really difficult thing when you see your horse is in distress. So thanks again for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and check back soon, because as you know, we're always up to something here on the farm. Bye, guys.